I'll tell you something else I've discovered during lockdown is my own personal anxiety.
Mm.
Um, I'm not somebody who over my life has been particularly anxious about anything because I don't tend to think too much about stuff. I haven't done until I was about 50, I suppose. I know which is a long way for you still to get to 50. I'm aware of that. But it's something happened, I think, when I was 50. Maybe I became aware of my own mortality, maybe, or something like that. But I think for some people, COVID has actually created more anxiety. They might have had anxiety, got more anxiety. But for many of us, we maybe have faced anxiety for the first time because we have felt out of control, maybe for maybe the first time, or had time to think about it, possibly, which is, I think, has been quite difficult. And some people, I think, seem quite blasé about what's been going on. They don't seem to have been affected by it at all. And I wonder if people are being honest with themselves. Because life for many, in fact, for most of us, has been difficult, hasn't it?
Mm.
And we've had moments. Sometimes I wake up in the night, can't sleep, my mind starts racing, I begin worried about all kinds of stuff, which in the morning I can't remember what I worried about, which are very interesting. And I can't say it's been caused by COVID, but maybe what has gone on and those friends who I've had try and support and all things have been going on, maybe that's affected me more than I kind of realised. And I think many other people might have a similar thing. And although we do follow God, it still can be difficult. And I do trust God. It still can be difficult. I still go through the same emotions and the fears and the doubts that everyone goes through, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had an issue with anxiety since I was a teenager, maybe even earlier, but certainly I became aware of it when I was a teenager. And that's only got worse with COVID. And anxiety can come out in all kinds of ways. So I can identify with what you say about, being awake in the middle of the night, with your head full of worries. And for some people, anxiety is really obvious. Some of us kind of show it overtly. So you can see some people look worried, or they might be talking about their fears or seeming anxious. Other people can feel very anxious on the inside, but just don't show it. And so I tend to keep it all inside. And it's only people who know me very well that know when I'm anxious. And I have to say, being a Christian doesn't really make any difference to my experience of anxiety. The thing that's helped me the most, the two things that have helped me the most have been counselling and medication. So I thank God for the NHS every time I take my tablets. So does being a Christian make a difference to your experience of anxiety, Andy?
I think it does and it doesn't, because I guess I've always thought my favourite verse in the whole Bible is 1 Peter 5 verse 7. As again I've said a number of times on Life and Soul. Leave you always with him because he cares for you is the Andy abbreviation, basically. So trying to hand those things over that I'm worried about to God, I've tried to live that way. But even though I handed those things over, it doesn't necessarily make me feel better. And sometimes I've just got to live with the anxiety, even though I've given them to God. And I coach people things like worrying, concerned, and anxious behaviour, and so on, over many years in my role as a coach and so on. And it can help to a certain extent, but sometimes I just think I've just got to live with this. This is part of life, and I'm trusting God, but I don't necessarily feel any better. I have handed those things over to him, and there's an element of peace, but tomorrow night I might feel the same stuff again.
Sometimes, you can hand your anxieties over to God in prayer, but you're still left with that feeling of anxiety. It doesn't permanently go away.
Yeah. So if I'm really honest, sometimes I can get into God's presence, maybe in a great church service, for example, or praying with some people, and it can be really helpful. And God just reassures me that he's got it sussed. But it's just not a kind of a quick fix. I think it's over time. But other times I just think I've got to experience this. I've got to go through it. I've got to trust God regardless of how I'm actually feeling. Because I suppose it's like saying, if you pray for something and you get the answer that you want straight away, that doesn't necessarily need faith. That doesn't need actually trusting God, because you just pray, slot machine in, pull a handle, done. And sometimes I think God does seem to answer things like that, but often he doesn't. It takes more time, or he doesn't seem to answer it the way which I think he should.